Starting. Oh, it's began. That took a little while. That took a sweet time. Goodness me. Hello, welcome to Performance Check. My name is Rob. I am gladly joined by Lloyd over the narrow sea from JARL DM. Say hey, man.
Hey, man.
I knew you were going to say that, man.
I mean,
I set myself up for
it's
it.
a classic theatre thing. Say this thing. Okay, I'll say exactly what you told me to say.
Absolutely, and then everyone laughs. Now we're gonna let's absolutely yes and I was gonna go live on Facebook, and then Lloyd messaged me saying I want to join. So I was like, yeah, let's do it, man. Let's just buddy do something. Let's talk about stuff. But it wouldn't be a Rob and Lloyd stream / chat if we did not begin first off with a little bit of mad bants. What do you say?
Mad bants, yeah.
I shall now initiate the mad bants protocol.
Activating banting.
Wait, I've got to press the button. There we go. Mad bants is now activated. So Lloyd, I was in a professional capacity hired to play Kylo Ren today.
I saw this, yeah. Fucking hell.
Which I was over the moon. Admittedly,
amazing.
Shakespearean Kylo Ren, but still.
But that's better, in my estimation.
I love the character. Like, I don't know, man. Like, he's my spirit animal. Like, I think maybe because I've always wanted to be Darth Vader, and I think he also wants that. So.
Yes. Well, I like him a lot because he is like. So Darth Vader is like a really good bad guy. He's like obviously a very effective villain, right? He's like really good at being a villain, and he'd like Kylo Ren is not, and that's like really interesting that he's like not good at it, and like I think it's way more interesting. Like I love Darth Vader. I'll never love anything more than Darth Vader, but still Kylo Ren is fucking incredible as an idea for a bad guy. I think it's really, really well done.
Yeah, I like thinking of Darth Vader as kind of a dark heart, like the epitome of evil, and Kylo Ren is kind of just this cowardly vulture picking over the corpse of the Empire. You know, like he walks around, he's sort of hunched, and he's sort of a bit sly and a bit underhanded. You know, like love him, but it was really rad because it was the author who does all the Shakespearean Star Wars books. And he was really nice. He was a really nice dude, and like he knew an awful lot about Star Wars. He knew an awful lot about Shakespeare, as you would imagine. And yeah, it was just a nice dude, man. I had a really good time.
Got to walk around. I wouldn't expect to intersect, but like they definitely can, and I see how they could.
Really do. Like you'd be surprised. Like in the New Hope one, for example, he adds some scenes which are really great. When you never see Han and Luke get out of the stormtrooper costumes once they're done with them. But there's an extra scene in the New Hope one where Luke is getting out of the stormtrooper thing again, and he's holding the helmet in his hand. He goes, "Alas, poor stormtrooper. I did not know him." And he starts musing over what this stormtrooper would have been like before he got murdered in the Death Star. There's one that comes because he was promoting the Force Doth Awaken, right?
Yeah.
Which is the one that we were reading from. And I wasn't just Kylo Ren. I got to play a few other things as well, which was pretty rad. I got to be one of the stormtroopers. You know, there's that scene where there's two stormtroopers walking down the corridor, and then Ren just goes nuts and starts like mashing up whatever, and they then turn around and walk away. It's those two stormtroopers, but they're having a conversation, which again isn't in the film, where one of them's like, "God, yeah, Kylo Ren, he's got a temper, isn't he?" Like, and the other one's just like. He's just like, you know, I saw someone else that was quite like that. You know, used to wear black, had mood swings, had a red lightsaber. He's like, "What do you mean? What, Kylo?" And he's like, "No, not Kylo, Darth Vader." And he's like, "Man, you're old." He's like, "How long have you been sipping?" And he's like, "I know, man. Like, and to be honest, I've never like my life has been a misery ever since I let those droids like get by me." And you slowly begin to discover that this is the stormtrooper that said that these aren't the droids you're looking for. I'm playing that stormtrooper as well. And you have this whole soliloquy of this stormtrooper talking about like how his life has been a misery ever since he let those droids go.
That's so in my head canon now. Like it's just one guy who's very unfortunate. You know, every time the Jedi fuck with him, it's always him.
It's always the same dude, man. But yeah, it was just very funny, very, very funny books. I do recommend them. And I don't know. I mean, converting Star Wars into Shakespearean text. I don't know, Lloyd. I would say it's an almost impossible task. But clearly not. But clearly not, because it's been done.
Oh, Rob, why are you such a TV show host?
I am such a TV show host, like literally to the death. Like I will try anything to see if it works, and that just didn't. So I'm just gonna put a big old cross next to that segue. There you go. So I was going to go live because there's a good reason why I picked this topic. A good friend of mine, T from T the Writer, he runs a YouTube channel. I would really recommend him. He just tells some really, really decent stories about his series is called D&D Stories. He tells really good stories about his time with the hobby and different experiences he's had in game, out of game. Just a really good channel to go and enjoy. So go over there and subscribe to him. He's great. And he sent me this video to watch. It's like a milestone of what he's done. Like it's the 50th episode of D&D Stories, and in it he actually reviews the epic level handbook from 3.5, which is one of my favorite D&D books from back in the day. Like this is what we would use like once our characters had transcended the that level barrier and gone into the next dimension, as it were, of D&D. And it reminded me of a particular encounter that I ran for my players. There is a beast that I later discovered, which was from Greek myth, but at the time I did not know this. The HECATONCHEIRES, which I got that right, didn't I? Like, I've got it phonetically written, like there to make sure I did. I did the same when I ran the encounter, to be fair. Which is essentially, it is. The description in that book is that beast is an aberration or an outsider or something. I think it's an outsider created when the universe was like young, and like it's just this abomination, this thing that was born from within the dark heart of the universe or something, and it's got like it's before form and like existence had fully been decided on. And this thing has like 100 arms and 50 heads, and this thing on its stat sheet has 100 attacks because it attacks with each hand, and it's just insane. Right, this thing is absolutely insane. Now when I was running this encounter, I like to think even then I wasn't stupid enough to run it as is and roll 100 attacks against the players. So in a dramatic encounter, in a setting that was a rift between dimensions, this horrendous thing that can move really fast as well, like it kind of just sort of appear in front of you and just rip you to shreds. It would just appear and chase them. So it was just like this wall of swords and blades chasing them as they have to navigate around this sort of this dungeon, basically. And it was a skill encounter, I suppose, before I really knew what a skill encounter was, but it was like asking them to make checks to escape it rather than fight it. And it just brought back a lot of memories about like, well, even if they have impossible odds like that, it's still something that you can put into your game and make it fun and interesting, and it shouldn't be something to be shied away from. So this is sort of the rough thing that I wanted to talk about. Impossible encounters and impossible situations in games. Now, I don't know if you have an exact sort of example yourself, Lloyd, but like I know that you do like fate and fatalism in your games, and
yep. So like recently you fought the Witch King, which is like a really good example of an impossible one. Although that one was, mechanically possible, but very difficult.
Very difficult.
But I have done it lots with Iscloft. It's a staple of the setting in my mind that the players get in a situation where they're fucked, and I like to try and present those things where like there's an option for them not to have to fight the thing, but because of who the players are, they probably will.
Yes.
So in the Ladies Week game that I ran a couple of weeks ago, they had like gone all this way north and found these two Jotunnet who were like half giants. One of like the two greatest smiths in the world. They make stuff for the gods. They make these amazing items, and they went to talk to those. And their leader, this like mysterious figure, the Morrigan, who is like this raven-haired woman from Iscloft, Ireland. She wanted to kill those giants and take their stuff. That was like her main quest. That's what she wanted most of all. And so they got there and they met the giants, and they were like very polite, and they believed in like the laws of hospitality. So they brought them in, they made them food, and they were like chatting with them. And then like their leader was just like, we have to kill these fuckers and take their stuff. And the players got to make the choice. Do they want to fight these two giants who are like 15 feet tall? Or do they want to stick with the oaths that they've sworn to their leader? And that's a really good situation for Iscloft, I think, because oaths are really important, and it makes for, because like you don't want to fight those fuckers, but also you want to stick to your word and stuff like that. So I tend to do stuff like that. Put them in not fully impossible situations, but difficult, almost certain death situations where they have to make a moral choice, you know?
Absolutely. And yeah, that choice is the fight or flight thing. And I think a lot of games suffer from, it goes back to the whole thing there was a whole time when we were talking about surrender in games, and you know, the chance to understand that you don't have to fight, you can surrender or you can flee. Which I got a lot of shit for. If you go look over at my Matt Colville thing, my goodness me. So people really love that,
I saw that, yeah.
I was like, yeah, sorry about it, guys. Well, not sorry at all. Everyone watched the video. It was one of my most popular videos as well, so thanks for the views. But yeah, like I think it kind of boils back down to that, doesn't it? It's the I suppose communicating that, you know, there is always another option to drawing your sword, and I like that what you mentioned there, that there is a decision there that will obviously have weight and consequences throughout the rest of the game as well because of that.
Also, recently I played around my first dragon ever. It was an Iscloft game as well, where the players had like, they were very powerful for Iscloft. They were level 10, I think, which is pretty much the highest level you can get in that world. Really accomplished warriors and really great heroes. And they were like feasting in this hall, and some guy came running in. He was like, fuck. And he had like found a golden arm ring, which is super rare. And they were like, we're going to investigate. So they went up these like stairs that are carved into a mountain and all the way to the top. And they found a dragon there. And the dragon was like, oh, fuck this. Like, you can serve me or I'll destroy you. And like they were faced with that. And like they didn't run, and they didn't really, and then they decided to fight. But again, that's like you're not going to beat a dragon. Like, you know, I mean,
sentence.
You're just not going to. Like, I don't, yeah. I mean, maybe this is where we differ sometimes, but I think that it's like there's no situation in which 4 normal mortal men are going to defeat a, you know, Smog. It's just not going to happen.
No, I know. I actually agree. I totally agree with you.
So that was like an impossible encounter. That also had like options. They could have sworn allegiance to that dragon if they wanted to, but they didn't. They wanted to fight it. Jeff, in the end, did. He was actually killed before he could speak. Because one of them was like, I'm gonna fucking kill him, and they swung the sword, and the dragon went with breath weapon, and then Jeff's character was murdered horribly, burned to death, except not fully to death. He was like struggling, barely alive.
Oh,
and he, like,
no.
woke up and he was like, I'll swear allegiance. Yeah.
Well, I think that's probably the place where we have to like say that that actually wasn't an impossible encounter. It's just impossible to win through combat.
Yes. Yep.
It's still an encounter, and you can still walk out the other side. It's just impossible to do it by drawing your blade or whatever and fighting a dragon. I'm intrigued, actually. Was that like a dragon that was like, because I remember you talking about it briefly. Was it like based off Sigurd?
Fafnir.
Fafnir,
yeah.
Fafnir, yeah.
Yep.
Fafnir, yeah.
So it's like
so cool.
Story is that it was that dragon was a person, and he like found this gold, and then he like began to like lust for gold and gathered all the gold, and the more gold that he like was on or around, the more he like became like hunched and started to grow big, and eventually he like became an actual dragon from it. So that's how dragons are made in Iscloft. It's through greed and dragon sickness.
I love that, and it fits really well because, you know, Iscloft isn't abound full of monsters, but the ones that there are, there generally always seems to be a good reason and a good like there's an identity to each of those monsters and why they're there. And I think the dragon like that is pretty damn rad. The other thing that I want to talk about, which is about things being impossible, is not so much it being an impossible challenge or an impossible encounter, but also things that are almost impossible to look at. I mean, like going back to the HECATONCHEIRES, like the eldritch horrors, and portraying those in games, because you can often say to a player, you know, this thing that you're looking at or you're perceiving, because you can't even really look at it, is impossible to describe. Where do you go from there? How do you do it?
That's tricky. I think that's like so Lovecraft's really good at it, I guess. Like it's where it comes from, and he has this way of like just giving impressions of a thing. Like you see like a glimpse of 100 eyes or whatever it might be, you know. Yeah, I think like saying your mind can't comprehend what you're looking at can feel to players like, oh, but what is it though? What does it look like? You know, it's like you can't imagine what it looks like. Even if you saw it, you wouldn't be able to. You know.
The thing that I think, if you can't use sensory description to describe it, you can't say what it looks like, because it's so indescribably, like, it's beyond language, it's beyond sight. The way that I think, and this is something that I'd like to mention, is that, okay, you can't say like what it exactly looks like, but you can tell the players how they feel when looking at it. So instead, when you look upon this creature, you see like you know, a desolation, you see a barren, because it's like your mind is trying to translate to what this thing is, and the only way it can do it is by, you know, referencing emotions and things that register with the players. So it's like you feel an emptiness, you feel a darkness in your heart that you never knew was there. As you begin to realize the impossibility of your situation, you feel like cold fingers upon your heart and throat or whatever, like just stuff like that. But in that situation, like, if something is impossible like that, dealing with the Lovecraftian terror, like, what can players be expected to do? You know, like if they are dealing with something like that, then what is their role in that an encounter like that?
I mean, if I'm playing in a game and I see something like that, my character's running, like there's no question. Like I try to, and this is sometimes to my detriment, is I try to play people who are reasonable, characters who are reasonable, and so sometimes it can end up with my characters being like, no, why would we do that? That's a terrible, like I played a game recently and we discovered that the thing we were going to fight was a succubus, which is a fucking demon, right? And then my character was like, no, why would we fight that? Let's just leave. Let's just not fight it. It's a demon, an actual demon, you know? So that can be a problem sometimes for me, because I'm just like, why would any, like, and these characters are often more intelligent than I am, right? Like if I'm a wizard, he's smarter than I am, for sure. So why would he go and do that thing when I would have the cop on not to go and do it, you know?
I suppose the only like point to that is that, you know, that maybe this character you're playing is smarter than you and would know that's a demon. But at the same time, I suppose you could argue, I don't agree with this, but you could argue, oh, well, you're a wizard. You know? Yeah,
but that's true. You know, he has magical powers that I don't have, you know, and his ability to like defend himself in ways that I can't comprehend anyway, you know, so it is worth considering.
But it is, the way that I can then consider it is like, it's like you and I being told there's like this dude over there, he's 7 foot tall, he's ripped, okay, like, and he wants to batter you. And that's like you and I were then thinking, let's go and try and fight him. You know what I mean? Like, so we'd still have a chance, maybe, but like it probably wouldn't go very well. No. Like, why would we willingly want to go and do that? You know, like, and to be honest, that reaction I absolutely love when people are like, "No, it's a demon. Why do we want to fight it?" I like that.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable, you know, and I find often, like, even when I'm playing characters who would be considered like brave, you know, like Marius is suicidal brave, but that's like his part of his whole thing, right? That he's like fearless. But other characters that I play who would be considered brave, still in the face of like, you know, overwhelming odds or like a monster, it would just be like, no fucking way. Like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm going to leave and then fight another day. But to get back to your question, now I'm the TV show host.
No, it's all good.
Looking at a creature like that that's so horrible, I think the two things that you can do is either have your character go mad or run away. And it's hard to make your character go mad because you're not, you know, and like also go mad is like a really vague thing. Like,
it is.
What does it mean? Do you just start gibbering to yourself and cry, or, you know, like what? It's not even a madness. Yeah, it's not even a madness that like you couldn't even look at actual like mental illnesses and think like that's what would happen if you saw a crazy monster, because it's not. You know, like it would break your mind in a different way. I think ways that we don't understand because it's never happened. So it's tricky, I guess. But I think run is the obvious and like safe route. You know.
Which brings us back to the HECATONCHEIRES. The HECATONCHEIRES. The fact that they did run, and I was so proud of them because they weren't. This is like in 3.5 days where we were playing high level characters that, you know, I don't think they were. I think they were on the verge of being epic at that point when I was running that game. But like they still had the presence of mind to realize, look, we're not gonna. This isn't a fight for us. And because they ran, and it was, I just remember it being like a standout epic encounter that I ran because it was different, but it was still utilizing something insanely high level. And I don't know, I've always had a fondness for it ever since, even though it's just nuts, like 100 attacks. Like,
yeah, that's mental. I guess like in 5th edition, you would give it like a reaction every turn and you would let it make attacks for free as legendary actions or something. I don't know. But like, God, yeah, 100 attacks is mental. It's just impossible to run, you know? You couldn't. I guess it's like I think the HECATONCHEIRES were made by the gods to kill titans, or were the titans to kill gods?
That's right. They're like titan and god killers and things like that. Yeah.
Like, what are you doing fighting that? Like, I mean, they didn't, which is correct, you know. And that's the correct
because response. I was like, I don't want like what?
Yeah.
But I wanted to say I had it in my game because I could say I ran a game with the HECATONCHEIRES. And yeah, like I've always been fond of that. But the only reason I brought it up was because of T's wonderful video, which I do urge you to go and watch if you have any interest in sort of like that style of D&D. And it's a really good video because he goes through all of like the crazy things that are in 3.5 and stuff, and it just go. I put the link in the thing, so go check it out. I'm just going to read some things in the chat, but before I do so, I would like to urge those of you who are watching to give me and Lloyd some impossible encounters, and we will come up with solutions or whatever, or say things that you'd like to see included. That would be great. I think that would be good fun for us to do. So we have Jay Smith here, we have Jeff Doty, Lionel's here. He says, gonna watch these two guys to make sure they don't talk shit about my game. Oh, Lionel, you know we weren't talking shit about your game. We're just talking shit about hobbits. And your hesitation to kill them, that's all. And he says, Ohio. Jeff Day says, oh man, I love me a good impossible encounter. Not used enough, honestly. That's Jeff, the man who was burned to a crisp himself.
Yep.
Lionel says, very few players like this, unfortunately. Well, why is that? It's because people like winning, Lloyd.
Yeah. I think, it's tricky. I think that a lot of players, everyone plays D&D for different reasons, and I think that you can say that most people who play D&D play it in a way that we don't usually, or at all, I would say. They play it like, here's the GM and he has monsters and there's treasure at the end and here are us and we're going to kill X amount of monsters and pick up X amount of XP and then get the nice stuff and then level up. That's so fine, you know, if that's what you want to do. But that's like
sometimes,
not what I do. And I think that that's boring. if I want to do that, I'll play Baldur's Gate 2, you know, and even that will have more story in it than going from dungeon to dungeon. You know, like if I want to just like play a tactical game, I'll play a video game most of the time. Or a board game even, but I think that when I'm playing a role-playing game, I want to play a role. So the role is the most important part of RPG to me, not the G, you know, but it's a close second.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm of the opinion like I do like me a bit of crunch sometimes, but it has to be in the right kind of game, you know. And even then, it's still with more of an emphasis on the role than RLL rather than Anyway, yeah, you know what I mean. Role playing rather than rolling die. So yeah.
Yeah, I would say that generally it's because people want to win. They want to like struggle, but they want to win ultimately. They don't want to run away. Because for some people it's just like an escapism or like a power fantasy or something like that. And then if they have to like flee in their power fantasy, they're not feeling very powerful, you know?
That's true.
Yeah, probably why.
Yeah. Jeff says, I think the roles of the party in those situations is more of an introspective exploration than it acting out a role. The role is to try and imagine it and act accordingly, probably run and go crazy. So that's in response to the Cthulhian kind of stuff. And then he says, as Lloyd said regarding Iscloft, it's more interesting to see the moral quandary of how people think, how it is to see their actual physical reaction. Yeah, what it's like to see their actual physical reaction, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose so. It is an interesting role-playing challenge to say, look, you've looked into the void and you've seen unspeakable things. What's going through your mind? Then you're just like, well, it's sort of like an open book in a way. You could say anything. Like, so as difficult it is, it's also easy in the sense that you have, because there's nothing there that you have to definitely include because it's something that you don't have any detail about whatsoever, other than it's like this colossal horror.
I think that Call of Cthulhu has a thing with mythos where like the more adventures you go on and the more investigations you solve and the more things you see from beyond or whatever, you gain like a mythos score, which allows you to like access things like magic and like understanding what's going on. But the more of that you have, the more insane you become. And so like you have kind of limited time, you know, so like the more that you understand what you're looking at or try to understand it, the more mental you become until eventually you're no longer anything, you know, you're just a blob.
Yeah. Jay Smith says, Crispy Jeff. Lionel says, I agree with the win phenomenon. Playing the game isn't about winning. Then Jay Smith says, Lloyd, do you think there would be a way for mortals to defeat an overwhelmingly powerful foe like a demon? Is there no way to defeat the dragon?
So I am hampered by realism in my games. I don't tend to run high fantasy games, and Iscloft, even though there are fantasy elements, the stuff that the players can do is very much within the realm of people. Apart from like the magic user, which I'm still kind of tweaking, so I'm not sure. I'm not going to include that in this discussion. But most characters in Iscloft are like exceptional people who are like very strong or very quick, or you know. And I think like that's really good against other people and perhaps even like big animals and stuff. But I think when you're talking about something like a demon, like I don't know, man. I don't think there's any amount of people with swords that could defeat a Balor. You know, like thinking about like. It's got fire, like it's a Balrog. It's got fire radiating out from it in like 20 feet. You're on fire if you're near it, you know, and like it's got a lightning sword and a fire whip and like it can fly and cast spells. Like it's just so overwhelmingly powerful. I don't see how you could harm it properly. I think it's, and like with the dragon as well, like it depends on the kind of dragon you're talking about, but like I always think of Smaug and how huge Smaug is. And how like terrifying that dragon is, just so fucking huge, so powerful, and like nearly invincible to like mortal weapons, you know, like if you swing a sword at it, it's just going to be like yeah, whatever. So I think it's tricky to think about how you could try and defeat something like that. I mean, it's always possible. Everything's possible, you know.
Yeah. Like the way that I go about it, because I obviously include a bit more magic than you do, and mine isn't anywhere as near realism as Iscloth, for example. But I still have a reverence that to creatures like demons and dragons and things like that. And I think if anyone were to come across one of those in my setting, then one rarer, much rarer, like something that you're not going to come across easily at all. So the thought of even considering the threat is like, almost impossible. But even if you were to, it's something like it goes back to the book. Like I have a certain respect for the fact that even though it doesn't mean anything, a dragon is a certain challenge rating, blah blah blah. Not that, but dragons and demons should be the pinnacle of the things that are out there, like one of the most terrifying threats. So when you do bring them in, they should be near impossible to defeat, regardless of setting or what magic is available and stuff, because they are owed a feeling of awe. They are owed that sense of dread that you should feel when facing them. So that's the way I look at it.
That's a really good statement, that like they're owed a certain gravity. Like if you're cutting through demons, there's definitely D&D campaigns where you fight demons on the regular, and I feel like that just makes them not interesting.
Well, it's because as in terms of games development and wanting, basically it's people making the game that want you to face dragons early. That's why they have like wormlings and like vrox, like small demons and things, which is fine, or devils, whatever, which is fine. But I personally don't go for those. Like I don't think I'm ever going to have my players, you guys, ever face a dragon or a demon, full stop. But if
we've got like dretches, right? Like who are like CR1 demons. Like even if it's a CR1 demon, it's still a fucking demon. Like it's from hell, right? Like it's like from the worst possible timeline afterlife. It's still terrifying and horrible. And it should like make you feel sick looking at it. Like, and that's beyond just like the Balor being like ultimately powerful. There should be like powerful feelings of just like disgust and like arousal and vomit and like fucking fire and hell and terror. Like all this stuff that is associated with hell should just like smack you in the face just a second before its lightning sword fucking hits you in the face.
And it's important. Those feelings are important because you're not half-assing it, and that's what I feel it would be like if you're put up against like a moderately powerful devil or demon or small dragon. It's just like, why? When you can have the genuine article. So here we are. We're going back because we've had quite a few comments now. People are chatting a bit more. So Lionel says, tune in later in November as players will bring their characters to try and defeat a dragon in Iscloth. Is that a thing, Lloyd? Are you running a game with a dragon in
it? I think that Lionel probably is running a game.
Oh, I would look forward to that.
Spoiler alert, they don't do it. They better not, Lionel.
And all the hobbits do it as well. Hobbits succeed. I'm sorry, Lionel. I'm just pissing around, man. Just joking, man. Don't worry. Jeff says, impossible encounter idea. So here we go. In a highly religious setting where the players are dedicated and sworn to kill evil, they encounter an insanely strong heretical wizard. The party are just dudes, level 1 to 3. Ooh, that's really cool. So it's our favorite thing in a sense, Lloyd. Why aren't you more afraid of wizards? How do you go against someone with that type of power and make it compelling in a game?
That's a TPK in my mind, because those people are like dedicated and sworn and like zealots. So they're going to try and kill this wizard.
Yep.
But they can't. You can't kill a wizard if he's above you in terms of power. Well, I guess, if he was level 5, they might do it. But if he was level 10, probably not, and he's probably going to be higher than that. So I think what happens is they like maybe do some research, find out where he is, or and then like find the trail, and they go there, and then they walk into the myriad traps that he has set up, and then they finally find him, and he's like, "Oh, you've made it," and then he like flicks his finger, and then they die. You know, like, I mean, he might not do that. It might be a case of like, here's the he would cast hold person on all of them, and then go, "Here's the situation. I don't want to die. I also don't want to murder you. So you can leave me alone, and I will leave this city and not trouble you anymore. Or you can try and kill me and see what happens." And then he would unfreeze them. And that's a good moral sort of quandary for them to have. They can see how powerful he is, and that he can fuck them to death if he chooses to do so.
I am your god now.
Yeah, exactly. And then if they do it anyway, it's their own fault, you know?
I think the cool thing about it is that despite them being highly religious, it doesn't mean entirely that they're just going to go in guns blazing. Like, they could be smart about it.
Yeah.
They might have seen an example of what this wizard can do and be like, well, our gods have sent this individual to challenge us. Let us approach this in a different way, blah, blah, blah. I really like the idea of them having to be super smart. I remember there was a game that I was in, and I was playing an assassin, and my friend was playing a monk, and it was just two of us, and my other mate was running for us. And there was an incredibly powerful psionic character that had previously rocked up and basically turned one of the other characters that my friend had previously played into a vegetable, essentially. Sorry, no, he did that to the monk. My friend then came back as an archer of some type. So he basically just one-shotted him with this psionic power that basically made his brain melt. Like, he thought he was in like a beautiful place, and then his henchman then came along and pulled his head off with his bare hands. Like, it was horrendous. So we knew that, and it was so cool because it was us realizing that we basically have to take this person down before he can say or do anything, before he can look at us. And that made the challenge really fucking cool. Like, as an assassin character, that's like a really cool contract to have, because you've got to be like that and it's over.
Yeah.
So the combat was just one round, and if we had failed, then that would have been it. We succeeded, but it took like a ridiculous amount of planning. We had to trick him into coming into an open area where he was on his own, where we could like concentrate on him and just unleash hell upon him in like one round of combat. And it was so much fun. And if honestly, if it had gone wrong and we'd missed, for example, then that would have been it. But it was our choice to do it. It was our choice to go for this guy. So I really liked the element of planning for that. So that's what I would try and suggest in that encounter, is that the highly religious people have to like lure the wizard somewhere and like get him in one, you know.
Yeah, it's good. Or even like, you know, find out where he lives and go get him when he is asleep, or things like that, or poison him or something. Like, avoid a direct confrontation. I think that's a really cool encounter idea. It's actually kind of what, well, not exactly, but it's similar to the game I'm planning in the Nine Kingdoms, where a crew of witch hunters are going to go and fight a witch of some kind. You know, that's not going to be walk in and kill the guy. I certainly hope not.
I'm really looking forward to that, man. I think once we've done that, I'd like to like do one of these about that, because as I mentioned on the stream the other day, like, you're the first person to have run Nine Kingdoms that isn't me, so that's exciting. Yeah, really cool. And I love the witch hunters. They're just so, I love them. And then there's really like that's like really arrogant to say about something that's your own, whatever. Harry's here. Hey man. Jay Smith says, yet the black arrow laid Smaug low.
Yes,
What's
that's
your
true.
thoughts on the black arrow, Lloyd? Because that's a really good point. There is the black arrow that can stop.
I think it's fine. I think it's like a MacGuffin.
That surprises me, actually, Lloyd.
Yeah, I think like they made those arrows with the intent of killing a dragon, and they're made by dwarves, I think, as well, right? And they're obviously not made of like steel. I feel like they're made from dwarves.
Can I just say though, I hated in the film that they had those stupid turrets. I wanted it to be him with just a bow.
For sure.
Like,
Yep.
and you can tell the only reason they did that, I think, is because they'd included Legolas. Because otherwise, Legolas could have done it.
Yeah. Yeah. Why wouldn't Legolas do it? He's the best archer in the world.
Why wouldn't he? Was the best shot. Like, he could do that with his eyes closed.
Yep. This is a man who once skateboarded down a step and killed 3 orcs, you know?
Oh my god. This guy, he fucking went up on the back of an elephant and like murdered it and killed like 20 people in one go. Like,
didn't he shoot when he's like leaping across in Khazad Dûm? He's like leaping across a falling step and he's like, and like gets a goblin between the eyes. Like, yeah, the best shot in the world.
It's like this guy that I know. This guy, he got an arrow out of his quiver, stabbed this dude through the mouth with the arrow, put it back in the bow, and fired it into someone else through that dude's throat. You know? Why?
Yeah, somehow hard as the actor.
Somehow bad. This randomer.
I think the black arrow is fine. It's like a plot device. It's like, this is the only way that you can kill Smaug. It's with this particular arrow. And there's only one of them, I think, in the book. Anyway, you know.
When he says he's had it in the family for a while. Yeah.
And that's kind of fine. It's like you have to do a certain thing to kill a certain thing. You know, like the way like elves in Iscloft are weak to cold iron. So if you have unforged iron, then you can fuck them with it. But if you don't have any, then you're dead, probably. You know, that kind of thing works. It's like a weakness or like a vulnerability. I think is fine.
It's like The Witcher, like when you have to get certain ingredients for certain monsters, which is pretty rad. So I suppose, whatever the black arrow is made out of something that the dragon is particularly vulnerable to.
And if you know, running a dragon and the players knew that there was a weakness that the dragon had, and then they prepared and got that weakness and then went and fought it, then it'd be a different story. But I'm talking about most of the time, like walking into a dragon's lair and being like, okay, let's fight it. Like, don't do that. You know, you're dead.
So if it's going to be a spoiler, if you ever have a dragon in Iscloft in the future, but would you consider there being a black arrow in Iscloft? Is Iscloft somewhere that could have a black arrow as a metaphor? Like, it could be anything.
Yeah. Yes. Not a black arrow, but it would be something. It would be like a blade or something like that. Maybe Sigurd's blade or Siegfried or whatever you want to call him. Something like that. Like something that has killed a dragon before. And that, you know, that's like a magical thing and a way that you can do it.
What I love about that legend, and we won't go into it, but Sigurd, Siegfried, whatever, like usually in stories, like, you know, it's the hero and he's like doing it for good reasons or whatever. Sigurd's just an asshole. Like, he's such a prick. He's such a prick. It's like, he does it for all the wrong reasons, but that's why I love him, because he's just an asshole. Lionel says, F that, I wouldn't fight a giant spider. I run quick as fuck.
Yep.
Yeah, fuck yeah. Holy shit. With luck, everything is as powerful as a dragon. I don't know what that's in reference to, Harry. Sorry. Jay Smith. Oh, I absolutely agree there, Rob. I think that was about, in fact, I think that was all about the reverence. Reverence for demons and dragons, Lionel says, I like impossible encounters that are more mundane, like being outnumbered or in a compromised position, limited weapons and armor. Yeah, man. Like, and that is something that we've talked about before, I think, which I don't know how to talk about it again. Like, I think that's something that we've both done to some extent.
My favorite impossible encounter is in the Hunted game that I ran, where they woke up nearly dead, and like naked and unarmed, and some peon, just like some shitty Viking guy, not even a warrior, just a guy who happened to have an axe, was like a death encounter. He was the deadliest encounter I've ever run, and he was a peon. You know, like it was fucking great. Like he wasn't scary. He was just like a guy, but he had a weapon and they didn't, you know?
See, that's where you take it into a different genre, because like in that, it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
You know, a horror movie, the threat can be just a dude with an axe.
Yes, it's true.
Your power level is significantly lower to if you're in an action film or something, you expect the people to be able to fight and do whatever. And yeah, man, like I loved that game. I loved watching that game. It was amazing. But yeah, like it's good. It's a good role-playing encounter to have when you have like up against innumerable foes, for example, or
Nico ran a campaign that we played in called Hexenjäger, where we were all witchers, ostensibly. We were all like of an order of people who hunt monsters, and it was all very witchery in that like we would have to do a lot of research and like figure out what the weaknesses might be and prepare for those weaknesses. And we fought a dragon in one of them. This dragon had like taken up into resting in like the lake next to a village. And so like they usually would catch a load of fish, and all the fish were gone, and they couldn't get any fish out of the village, and they were like, what the fuck's going on? And it was just like living down there. So we had to like do all this stuff to like lure it out, and we had like made loads of traps and stuff, and like made potions to resist its breath and stuff, all this sort of like prep. So the game was like really long, but there was only like one encounter, which was fighting the dragon, and that wasn't a very long encounter. It was all the prep work and the research and stuff like that, you know?
I really like that. I'm excited to see that with Witch Hunters in Nine Kingdoms. Like you just said there, that I think I might run something like that as well, like prep heavy encounter. Yeah, I really like that. Harry says, or against two drunk people, remember that? I guess that's something they've done. Lionel says, I hate you, Rob. I will point out that session was exemplary for a number of other reasons, though. I mean, Taylor singing blew my mind. So there was really amazing things in that session, man. Like, we are joking, we're just messing with you, so don't worry, man. But seriously, kill the Hobbit. Jeff then says, oh, sorry, I've skipped a few. Logos says, where's the pit of Tartarus when you need it? I've played in a few campaigns that have delved into hell, which were nuts and horrible things, but interesting. Jeff says, one of my favorite impossible characters that I ran as a GM was the Les Mis barricade fight. I didn't actually see that game, but I'm guessing that's the French Revolution one, right?
I was in it, yeah. They were just dudes with guns trying to fight an army, but they had a dream and a cause. Yeah, that was great. We were just like, my first character had died already in that game. Really? Yeah, and then I just played like this guy who worked in a factory who like had been given a gun, and he was like, yeah, we shouldn't live in tyranny, but he wasn't a soldier at all, you know. And so we like stood at this barricade, and then the fucking French army came at a time where they were the best army in the world. And then we tried to fight them, and everyone died, which is what should have happened. It was great. It didn't feel utterly hopeless for the characters, but it did for the players for sure. You know, we were like, we're not winning this. It's the fucking French army, you know. And even if we killed all of those soldiers, that's only like one regiment or battalion, whichever is smaller, the smaller thing. You know, it was really well done, I thought.
I think Jeff's brought up a really good point, which is that I think players would probably be more compliant with the idea that they can't win if the reason they're up against that challenge is because of an ideology or a thing that they fully believe in. So like that, they believed in a cause and they were ready to die for the cause. It makes me think of, I'm guessing you'd have seen this, Lloyd. We've watched basically all the same films. Have you ever seen Man in the Iron Mask?
I actually haven't seen that film. Yeah.
Oh, damn. Can I give the example? Do you mind?
No, go for it.
Are you sure? Dude, you need to watch that film. It's essentially the Musketeers, but when they're like way old, like they've got really old or whatever. And D'Artagnan is now... Are you familiar with the Musketeers? You know them, right? You know who they are.
Yeah, mostly.
So D'Artagnan is now like the king's first sword, like he's his bodyguard, right? But the other Musketeers are sort of like renegades, rebels that are basically like have retired because they don't believe in the king's ideology. The king is played by Leonardo DiCaprio, and he's an absolute asshole. Like he's a Joffrey. He's a Joffrey, basically. Right. And at the very end of the film, oh God, well, I won't tell you exactly what, but it's basically the Musketeers, and they're in this corridor, and they're faced with like a line of, like you say, like French guns, like and arguably the best fighting force of the time. And the Musketeers obviously stand for something, which is like honor and blah blah blah. And they're all talking like they would at like how they would in like flashbacks and stuff, where you see them like as heroes, like always being there for each other, always upholding like the code or whatever. And they give that one last time and say, no, we're not going to surrender. This is a worthy death. This is what we were trained to do. And they charge the corridor, and it's, oh man, like it's just so fucking rad. And they obviously then open fire, and like, oh, You need to check it out, man. Check out Man in the Iron Mask. For those of you who haven't seen it in the chat, Man in the Iron Mask, man. Man, that would be cool.
What's a good impossible encounter? Speaking of movies we both like, is Hector going out to fight Achilles? That's a good one.
Oh my god!
You know, like that's impossible. Everyone knows that's impossible. You know,
but it's so well done.
Yeah.
Like, because
although I think I told you, apart from my friend, I think I told you about my friend who was. Did I? My friend who thought Hector would win.
Yeah, I remember now. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They were clever about it because, like, Achilles at the end, like when he's talking to Priam, he's like, "Your son was the best I've ever fought." Like, you can tell that it wasn't like a walk in the park for him. He didn't finish him easily. Like, he had to actually fight him, which was rare for Achilles. Achilles could just generally finish people because he's Achilles.
They did it well, though. He did piss all over him, which he should do, you know?
He did still piss on him, but, like, he still had to fight him.
Yeah, he did fight him, you know? Like, you could see that maybe he broke a sweat or something. Yeah, that was really well. I think that's my favorite choreographed fight. I love it.
It's tough. Like, it's out there because they use spears. Like, that's so freaking rare in anything. You rarely ever see like a decent spear fight because, like, generally speaking, spears aren't the flashiest.
No, yeah, not at all. It's always swords.
But when they're being wielded by like these Greek heroes, they should be like on the same level as a sword. So
I like why it's so good, because Achilles knows he's going to win, so he's doing all this flashy shit. He like puts it behind his back, like, and you know, he's just showing off because he knows like he has the measure of Hector in a few minutes, you know.
Yeah, and he's doing it in front of his people.
Yeah,
so he knows to make a show of it. Like, everyone's watching on the walls, and he's just standing there on his own. He's like, "Fuck yeah, I'm gonna fuck you up so bad." He even says to him, "You're not gonna have eyes. You're not gonna have ears." Like,
so terrible.
You'll walk through the afterlife forevermore, and all the spirits will say, "There's Hector, the fool who thought he killed Achilles." It's so hard. It's like, dude, fucking lay off, man. Like, you committed cancer by accident, man, because you're a prick. You should have been there. Yeah, man.
He's the best. I love Achilles so much. He's such a fucking prick. It's so good. Oh, so good.
I wouldn't want to fight him, and that is why no one will remember your name. 6-year-old child.
Yeah.
It's like, fucking hell, man.
I mean, like, I wouldn't want to fight Bargius either, you know? I don't think anyone would. He's fucking huge, you know?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and he's like, fuck you. Yeah, I met Achilles once. He was really rude. You never meet your heroes.
He's a rude boy.
Oh, man. What'd you say? I think we've done all right, haven't we?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good.
Oh, no, we've got a few more comments. So, there's just a few more. But Nico's here. Nico's in the chat. Hector's gonna win.
Oh god!
The logo says Achilles.
It's the funniest thing that a friend of mine has ever said. It's the oldest story on Earth, like, almost. You know.
It is really funny.
It's one of the oldest stories that exists. Just ever. It's amazing.
But from the film, he obviously thought, well, clearly Hector's badass. And he is.
He is, yeah. I guess if you hadn't heard the story before. But how have you not heard that story before? Yeah.
It's weird because Hector's really portrayed as the protagonist. Like, that's why the film's a bit weird, because he plays him as the protagonist, which I guess he kind of is, but like they both are. Like, it's a confusing film. It's a confusingly made film, and it's brilliant. But it's so weird, like, because they stick to what they want to do. Like,
yeah, I actually think it's a pretty bad film. I just love it.
It's
bad.
Yeah, there's no denying that it isn't like a particularly well written film.
Yeah.
But also,
I just adore it for the quotes.
Also, the best written film of all time because it's so quotable. Like, isn't that weird?
Battle.
For those of you that don't know, go and check out Troy. I think everyone, that's your homework for those of you watching.
Yep.
Well, go check out Troy. Go check out T the Writer's video that I posted, because it's really cool, and like, you'll see some of the wicked epic level stuff and suggestions. Like, this is the thing about that epic level handbook that I forgot about. I went and downloaded it as soon as I watched that video, because it's somewhere. I have the copy of it, but I don't have it with me. So I downloaded it, and there's like 100 campaign ideas for epic level adventurers. And I was like, that's so great. And I was looking at them, I was like, these are amazing. Like, never say that epic level is beyond reasoning, because like it was great. Lots of great suggestions in there. So check it out. Oh, you look like you're saying something.
Nope.
Okay.
I haven't played epic level. I think I did it in the Git game for a little bit, and it was pretty mental. But we were like gods in that game, like literally gods. So it's kind of different.
I want it gets that way, but I think the advantage is that when you've leveled the character up to that point, I mean, I've said this is stuff that I've said before, but you get used to the mechanics of that character, so it's not like you rolling a level 20 character and starting from there. You've got so much to learn. You've learned it as you go. That's how the game is designed. Anyway, so thank you ever so much for watching, guys. It's been a rambly one, but I really enjoyed this one. Bit of a laugh. Lloyd, have you got anything that's coming up for you at all that you want people to go and check out?
Against the Shadow on Monday.
Oh, definitely go watch that. We should talk. Oh, why don't we talk about that? Let's do that. Are you around tomorrow? We can do one tomorrow if you want. Or like
I won't be around tomorrow.
All right. Well, soon. We'll do one soon.
Yeah.
We won't organize this on the stream. So, anything else?
Nope. That's it.
Cool. I don't know. Stuff will be on my channel at some point. I don't know exactly. Oh, Jeff Doty says running an Iscloth game tomorrow. So do yourself a favor. Go over to Counterbalance, our friend Jeff, who's like always in the chat, always giving us fantastic suggestions and questions and statements in the chat. So do me a favor. Go over and check out Counterbalance on YouTube and subscribe, because Jeff runs games that we like.
Yes.
So, yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you very so much for watching, and I hope that all of your performances are up to standard.